The investigation into the Brown University shooter takes a deadly turn as the search for the suspect ends in New Hampshire.
Between December 13th and December 14th, Nils Valente returned to Massachusetts. On December 15th, he murdered MIT professor Nuno Luriero at Luriero's home in Brookline, Massachusetts.
I'm Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Friday, December 19th. This is Morning Wire.
Men are men. Men can never become women. Women are women. Women can never become men.
The Trump administration is cracking down on controversial transgender procedures for minors, cutting off any hospital that performs them.
And President Trump secures a much-needed economic win as inflation comes in cooler than projected.
I'm not saying we're going to declare victory yet on the price problem, but this is just an astonishingly good CPI report.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
This episode is sponsored by Equip Foods. The supplement industry is packed with bars masquerading as health foods, loaded with sugar and artificial ingredients that leave you bloated and unsatisfied. Our team has been on the hunt for something better, a delicious, convenient way to get clean protein that actually keeps us energized for hours. Luckily, we discovered Equip Foods Prime Bar, the first of its kind grass-fed beef protein bar with only real food ingredients and absolutely nothing to hide. I've been carrying these with me everywhere. Chocolate, peanut butter, mixed berry, it all hits the sweet tooth craving that I didn't know I had in a way that makes me feel good in my body while hitting my protein goal. Starting today, listeners will receive an exclusive discount on Prime Bar, which has become our team's favorite protein bar on the market, with 20 grams of protein in every bar. If you want to try the cleanest protein bar on the market that already sold out once, go to equipfoods.com/wire and use code WIRE at checkout to get 25% off one-time purchases or 40% off your subscription order for a limited time. That's equipfoods.com/wire and use code WIRE at checkout.
New bombshells in the Brown University shooter case, with the police chase extending all the way to New Hampshire last night. Joining us now with the details is Daily Wire reporter Tim Pierce. So, Tim, this shooter has been on the run for a week now, and there have been basically no leads up until last night when everything changed. What are the updates now?
Yeah, nearly a full week since a gunman at Brown University killed 2 students and injured 9 others. But yesterday, police found the body of the man who they say was responsible. Here's Providence Police Chief Oscar Perez in a press conference last night.
An individual was identified as Claudio Neves Valenti, date of birth, and he was a 48-year-old man. He was a Brown student. He was a Portuguese national. And his last known address was in Miami, Florida. And I will tell you that he took his own life tonight.
This Neves Valenti was a former Brown student. He was enrolled in a PhD physics program from the fall of 2000 to the spring of 2001. It's not clear yet what brought him back to Brown, but what authorities are certain of is that they found their guy. They found his body in a storage locker he had rented, dead by suicide. Police released images of him renting the car that they tracked him with, and in those images, he is wearing the same coat as the person of interest in the photos released earlier this week. Same build, also same fanny pack. Neves Valenti also had 2 firearms on him when they found him. Now, authorities reported earlier yesterday that they had found DNA evidence of the gunman at the crime scene. Presumably that will match with Neves Valenti to further seal this case. Officials said last night that this case really broke wide open after they released images of a second person of interest on Wednesday. Within a couple hours, that person had come forward, given police crucial information about the vehicle, and through the vehicle, police were able to identify Neves Valenti and eventually track him to that storage locker in New Hampshire. Law enforcement converged on it. Dozens of local, state, and federal agents surrounded the place before they finally opened it up and found Neves Valenti dead inside. Now, this breakthrough came at a pretty tense time between officials and the local community. If you watched any of these press conferences this week, you could see the frustration between reporters and the officials. Officials have taken a lot of heat for the pace of the investigation and for the competency of those in charge. For instance, here's a viral clip of the Providence Chief of Police, Oscar Perez, struggling to answer a question on the basic facts of the case.
So do you have video from
Yes.
inside the engineering?
Both inside and outside. I'm sorry, just outside. That's what we have, not inside. No, I'm sorry, just outside. That was released already. That was the outside of the building. We released that.
Yeah, let me just jump here and clarify.
Now, we began seeing reports yesterday that the shooting in Brookline, Massachusetts, 2 days after the Brown University shooting, might be connected. What's the evidence for that?
Right, and New Hampshire authorities confirmed that suspected connection last night as well. They said that Neves Valenti murdered MIT professor Nuno Laureiro in his Brookline home. Notably, Neves Valenti and Laureiro shared a common country of origin in that they were both immigrants from Portugal. And more than that, according to U.S. Attorney Leah Foley, Neves Valenti attended the same academic program in Portugal as Laureiro. Foley said that the main reason why it took so long to track Neves Valenti down is that he changed the plates on his rental car sometime after he murdered Laureiro and before he traveled to that storage locker that they found his body in. And I should note a bit more about Neves Valenti's background. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem posted about it last night. Keep in mind that Neves Valenti was a lawful resident, but he wasn't a citizen. Noem said, quote, "The Brown University shooter, Claudio Manuel Neves Valenti, entered the United States through the Diversity Lottery Immigrant Visa Program, DV1, in 2017 and was granted a green card. This heinous individual should never have been allowed in our country." She went on to add that she is requesting that the president end DV1 to ensure no more Americans are harmed by this disastrous program. Then she went on to add that she has now paused that DV1 program at President Trump's direction.
Tim, thanks for reporting.
Thanks for having me on.
This episode is sponsored by the University of Austin, Texas. You know college is broken. Activist professors, seminars that feel like struggle sessions, $80,000 a year to hear Hamas chants on the quad while being told America is evil in class. So what's the alternative? It's called the University of Austin, or UATX. At UATX, students are in small seminars taught by great professors. They read the great books of Western civilization to learn from them, not tear them down. They build actual companies on campus with mentorship from a vast network of top entrepreneurs and investors. You can be openly Christian or Jewish without apology. And when you walk into the main atrium, there's a giant American flag. UATX admits students based purely on test scores, so the application takes just 5 minutes. Oh, and another thing. Tuition is completely free, forever. It's funded by American patriots who want to create the Navy SEALs of the mind, not another generation of credentialed activists. To apply to the University of Austin, visit uaustin.org. That's UAUSTIN.org.
The Trump administration has moved to cut off federal funding for hospitals performing transgender procedures and surgeries on minors, fulfilling a major Trump campaign promise.
Here with the details is Daily Wire reporter Amanda Prestigiacomo. So, Amanda, big news from HHS yesterday. This is a pretty sweeping decision. How exactly is it going to be implemented?
So a number of new rules are going to be applied to cut off federal funding to any facility that's going to perform these trans procedures on minors. That would include puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, or any sex operation. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, they're going to bar hospitals from performing any of those procedures on children under 18 as a condition of participation in Medicare and Medicaid programs. New rules are also going to block funding of Medicaid's Children's Health Insurance program that will stop trans procedures for anyone under 19. That program, known as CHIP, covers millions of kids nationwide. CMS Administrator Dr. Mehmet Oz spoke yesterday about these coming changes. He really stressed the irreversible nature of these trans procedures and how much money they bring in.
The typical vaginoplasty, a procedure a child does not need, costs $60,000. Shockingly, a phalloplasty, the creation of a penis, costs on average in America, according to this data, high quality, $150,000 per child. It is shameful that clinicians have profiteered off this. I do not understand how it could possibly have been tolerated by the leadership of these institutions, but it will no longer be funded.
At the same presser, there were some powerful words from Chloe Cole. She's a detransitioner who's been fighting to stop these procedures so that other children don't have to go through what she went through.
At 13 years old, I was administered puberty blockers and testosterone in high doses. And when I was only 15, they removed my breasts. My questions about whether I will be able to have children or about the future of my reproductive health and my overall health have gone unanswered. But that mastectomy ensured that I am never going to be able to nourish whatever children I may have. Because of the moral failings of my doctors, I forever have lost significant parts of my identity as a now adult woman.
The changes follow an HHS review of trans procedures that found they have harmful impacts on children, like fertility issues, impaired sexual function, diminished bone density, altered brain development, and other irreversible psychological effects. But of course, this was all spearheaded by President Trump. The changes are a fulfillment of an executive order he signed back in January, just days after he took office.
Now, there's also a bill that passed in the House this week that takes aim at the doctors that are providing these treatments. What exactly does that bill propose?
Yeah, so this bill is called the Protect Children's Innocence Act, and what it does is criminalize these procedures. It would bar doctors nationwide from performing trans surgeries or giving gender-confused kids puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones. Doctors would face steep fines and even up to 10 years in prison for violating that ban. The bill will have an uphill battle in the Senate given the partisan divide here. Generally, Democrats are not going to support the bill, and it would need some support from a handful of Democrats to pass.
And now we also have a Daily Wire exclusive that broke yesterday about a bill on this subject matter. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so as Leif LeMahieu reported for the Daily Wire, a new bill is being introduced by Georgia Rep. Addison McDowell. It's called the Protecting Children from Foreign Mutilation Act. This would bar foreigners who perform, prescribe, or facilitate gender transitions for American children from ever entering the U.S. The bill is also going to bar entry for foreigners who are members of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, known as WPATH. That's a very controversial organization that pushes these trans procedures for minors.
So Republicans going at this issue from all angles, it sounds like. Amanda, thanks for reporting.
You're welcome.
A new report shows that inflation fell last month, defying expert predictions and providing political relief for President Trump.
Daily Wire senior editor Cabot Phillips is here to break down the latest numbers. Hey, Cabot. So for the last 4 years, you've come on to talk about these monthly inflation reports. It's usually bad news, but there's some good news this month. What did we learn?
Yeah, this month's inflation report took on even more importance as it was the first one that we've received since back in September. The October report was lost to the federal shutdown. So economists had originally predicted that inflation would rise month over month by 3.1%. But the numbers were released yesterday, and it actually came in at 2.7%, so considerably lower. Now, that 0.4% discrepancy, it doesn't sound like much, but in economic terms, that is huge. For context, inflation peaked at 9% in 2022 under President Biden, so we have come a long way now. And the numbers get even better when you look at core inflation, or CPI. That is the metric most closely watched by economists because it strips out prices on volatile things like food and gas. And last month, CPI was all the way down at 2.6%. That is the lowest it's been since March of 2021. So this report came as a surprise to a lot of folks on Wall Street and especially the legacy media. Here are some of the responses we saw on CNN and CNBC.
I mean, I was surprised. It was a better number than anyone was expecting. It was a positive news. There's no other way to spin it.
That is much better than the forecast from economists. Clearly, this is another step in the right direction.
The number of the morning, the CPI, maybe coming in a little bit better than expected. 2.7%. That is a very good number here.
As you can imagine, the Trump administration took a bit of a victory lap on Thursday. Here's White House economist Kevin Hassett kind of mocking the experts who had predicted that inflation would be spiking right now.
Yeah, it was just an absolute blockbuster report. We've looked at 61 forecasts, and this number came in better than every single one of them.
Yeah.
Not a single economist surveyed by Bloomberg got it right.
And investors were also thrilled by the news as the Dow, NASDAQ, and S&P 500 all climbed significantly, almost hitting record highs following the report. And it's also worth pointing out, if inflation keeps heading in the right direction, it could also make it more likely the Fed will continue to lower interest rates next year, which, again, would be more welcome news for Trump. For their part, the White House took offense to the idea that inflation fell unexpectedly. One administration official argued that this should be expected when a president, quote, cuts waste, fraud, and abuse, slashes costly regulations, and allows the energy sector to drill, baby drill. And to that last point on oil, nationwide gas prices have reached their lowest point since 2021. More good news there. 38 states are now below $3 a gallon, and in 7 states, it's below $2.50.
Yeah, I've certainly noticed personally the difference at the pump. So this follows Trump's national address that focused a lot on the economy. What does this all mean for the president's political standing?
So there are still some skeptics on this report and the economy more broadly. They point out that the government shutdown last month could have impacted some of the data gathering from the federal government and resulted in some slight inaccuracies. But regardless, the White House is thrilled. So now we've got to see how voters respond. There's no question this report comes at a great time for Trump. As you mentioned, he's working to convince folks ahead of the midterms that his economy is gaining momentum after 4 years of Joe Biden at the helm. And there's no question he's got some ground to gain. Poll after poll shows him still struggling on this issue. The latest numbers from Marist, for example, show that just 36% of Americans approve of his handling of the economy. That is not only the lowest mark for Trump ever over his first 2 terms, that is lower even than President Biden's approval when he left office on the economy. So the administration says the economy is stronger than folks realize and it's going to take time to recover. They've got less than a year now to make that case.
Right, clock is ticking, but no doubt this report is a good start for them. Cabot, thanks so much for reporting.
Absolutely.
Thanks for waking up with us. And if you're listening to the show, now you can watch for free on Daily Wire Plus. We'll be back later this evening with more news you need to know.